She sat quietly in the cold, dirty alley of New Haven Colony, her back against the wall and her knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was a pale silver blue, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the shadows. She looked like a child, maybe 14 or 15 in human years, but there was something strange about her, something not from Earth. People passed by the alley, pretending not to see her. Some looked for a second and quickly turned away. A few laughed, others cursed. One man even threw a half-eaten food pack at her. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just sat there, shaking from the cold. Mason was walking home from work. He was a repair tech, an average man, mid-30s, tired from long hours fixing colony machines. He almost walked past her too, but something made him stop. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe it was the way she didn't ask for anything, just looked at the world like she didn't expect kindness. He stepped into the alley, unsure why he was doing it. "You hungry?" he asked, kneeling down. She didn't respond, just stared. He reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed ration bar. Slowly, so she wouldn't get scared, he placed it on the ground near her. She didn't move. "It's food," he said softly. "You can eat it." For a long time, nothing happened. Then, with careful fingers, she reached out, snatched the bar, and pulled it close like it might disappear. She sniffed it, then took small bites, chewing slowly. Mason stayed there, watching her. She looked too thin. Her clothes were torn. No shoes, no name tag or ID chip. He guessed she was some kind of alien refugee. There were a lot of them after the last border war. "What's your name?" he tried. Still nothing. "Well, I'm Mason. I live a few blocks from here. I fix things." She looked up at him for a second when he said "fix things," then looked away again. He sighed and stood. "I'll come back tomorrow. If you're still here, I'll bring water." He left her there, but he kept thinking about her the whole walk home. The next evening, she was in the same spot. He brought water, a blanket, and another meal. This time, when he offered the food, she took it faster. Still no words, but her eyes followed him. She was starting to trust him. By the fourth day, Mason couldn't take it anymore. He brought her home. "Just for the night," he said aloud to himself as he opened the side door to his garage. He had a small room in the back with a cot and heater. "She can sleep here. One night. Then I'll figure something out." He led her inside. She looked around like it was another world. Lights, tools, wires, warmth. He handed her the blanket again and pointed to the cot. "You can rest here. Safe, okay." She sat slowly, then curled up. Mason backed away, unsure. He felt nervous. What if someone found out? What if she was dangerous? That night, he couldn't sleep. He checked the garage cameras. She hadn't moved, just slept, arms wrapped around the blanket. He watched her glowing eyes slowly close, and something strange happened inside him. He felt responsible. The next morning, he brought her breakfast and saw her studying one of his broken drones. The pieces were laid out on the table. He had been working on it for weeks with no luck. "Don't touch that," he warned gently. She looked at him, then at the drone. Then, with quick hands, she picked up a tool and made a few adjustments. Sparks flickered. The lights on the drone blinked. Mason's mouth dropped open. "How did you?" She didn't answer. Later that day, the Peace Patrol arrived in the area. Black armored vehicles, soldiers scanning the streets. They asked questions. "Have you seen anything strange? Unregistered aliens? Anyone acting odd?" Mason shook his head, trying to stay calm. "No, just the usual. Nothing strange." They moved on, but Mason could feel the tension rising. He ran back to his garage. The girl was hiding under the floorboards. Smart. Too smart. He helped her out. She looked scared. Her body shook as she reached for his hand. He gave it to her. "You can't stay here," he said. "They're looking for you." She opened her mouth. For the first time, she spoke. "Corell," she whispered. Mason blinked. "Your name?" She nodded once. That night, Mason didn't sleep again. A strange girl with glowing eyes and strange skills, now hiding in his home. Her name was Corell. He didn't know where she came from. He didn't know who was hunting her. But deep down, he knew one thing. This wasn't just about helping a lost girl. Something bigger was coming. Something that started with a small act of kindness. And Mason was already a part of it. "You said." Mason woke up early. The sun was barely rising over the rooftops of New Haven Colony. His mind was still on the girl, Corell. She was asleep on the cot in his garage, breathing softly, wrapped in the blanket he had given her. For a moment, she looked just like any scared kid. But Mason knew she wasn't just a normal girl. She was something else. She had fixed his broken drone with only a few glances. She had eyes that glowed faintly even in the dark. And now someone was clearly searching for her. He made breakfast, simple toast and synth fruit, and took it to her. She sat up quietly and nodded a small thanks. She still didn't speak much, but her eyes watched him carefully, like she was trying to figure him out. "You did something to that drone," Mason said, trying to smile. "That was impressive." Corell said nothing but tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand why he was surprised. Mason chuckled. "I've been working on that thing for weeks," he said. "You looked at it for 10 seconds and fixed it." He handed her the food. She took it gently and began to eat. Slowly, neatly. Outside, the noise of colony life began to rise. The hum of hover trucks, the chatter of merchants, and the heavy thud of armored boots. Mason froze. That sound, boots on metal, meant trouble. He looked out the garage window. 3 patrol trucks had stopped near the corner of the street. Soldiers in black armor stepped out. Their suits looked too clean, too advanced for simple patrols. One of them was holding a scanner. The others were armed with stun rifles and neural nets. Mason's heart pounded. He rushed back to the garage. "Corell, you have to hide. Now." She stood at once, alert. Her glowing eyes met his. No words needed. She ran to the floor and lifted the same board she had used before. Mason helped cover her quickly, tossing a tool rack over the area. A loud knock came at the front door. Mason opened it slowly, wiping his hands like he'd been working on machines all morning. "Morning," the lead soldier said. "We're scanning the area for a fugitive, possibly alien. Dangerous." Mason raised an eyebrow. "In this part of town, you sure you're not looking for a thief or something?" The soldier didn't laugh. He held up a photo on a holopad. It was Corell, but from weeks ago. Dirtier, thinner, still the same glowing eyes. "You seen this one?" the soldier asked. Mason shook his head, forcing his voice to stay calm. "No, can't say I have." The soldier stared at him for a long moment. The scanner behind him beeped softly, then went silent. "All right. If you see anything unusual, report it." "Sure," Mason said. "Good luck." They left. Mason closed the door and locked it. His hands were shaking. He went back to the garage and opened the floor. Corell climbed out, her face pale and her eyes wide. Mason sat down on the floor next to her. "They showed your picture," he said quietly. "They're serious." She looked down. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but full of fear. "I believe you," Mason replied. "But they won't care." Corell looked at him then. She seemed to struggle with something, then stood up and walked to the workbench. There she touched one of his tools and closed her eyes. A faint blue light flowed from her hands. The tool lifted in the air, then gently came apart, piece by piece. "I didn't want this," she said. "The power. The core light." Mason stood, watching the floating pieces move around her. "What is it?" he asked. Corell looked at him, her voice sad. "It's a part of me. My people, the Eliari. We lived in peace, but some wanted to use the core light as a weapon. War came. My kind was hunted. And now, I am the last one born with the world bond. Mason didn't understand all the words, but he understood the feeling in her voice. She was scared, alone, and very, very important. You're not safe here, he said. We need to figure out what to do next. Carell nodded slowly. I don't want to run anymore. But if I stay, they will hurt you. Mason smiled sadly. Too late for that. I already helped you. I'm part of this now. Outside, another vehicle passed by slowly, scanning the area again. Mason looked at Carell. Pack what you can. We leave tonight. Carell looked confused. Where? I know someone, Mason said. She owes me a favor. She's a smuggler. Carell looked at the tool floating above her hand. Then she closed her fingers, and it fell softly back to the table. I trust you, she said. Mason didn't say it, but he felt it too. He had just stepped into something far bigger than he ever imagined. But somehow, helping her felt like the right thing to do, even if the whole galaxy was about to come after them. The stars above New Haven Colony shine brightly, but Mason wasn't looking at the sky. He was busy packing a small bag, food, tools, some credits. Carell stood beside him, quiet but alert. She didn't ask questions. She just watched him and followed his lead. They waited until nightfall. The streets were quieter now. Patrols still moved in the distance, but they had stopped knocking on doors. Mason led Carell through the back alleys, avoiding lights and cameras. She moved silently, almost like a shadow. Stay close, Mason whispered. She nodded once. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached a rusty old hangar on the edge of the colony. A faded sign above the door read, Red's Repairs, but nobody called her that anymore. Inside was an old friend of Mason's, a smuggler named Jessa Redlin. She was rough, clever, and always ready to bend the rules, for a price. Jessa was sitting on a crate, cleaning a blaster when they walked in. Mason, she said, raising an eyebrow. Didn't think I'd see you again. I need a ride, Mason said. Off-world. Quiet. Fast. Jessa laughed. You must be joking. Off-world runs are hot right now. You got credits. Mason stepped aside so she could see Carell. Jessa stared. Her smirk faded. That's not human, she said carefully. She's in trouble, Mason said. I need your help. Jessa stood slowly. You brought a fugitive to my hangar. She's just a kid, Mason snapped. Look at her. Carell didn't speak, but her glowing eyes met Jessa's. For a moment, there was silence. Then Jessa sighed. Fine. I've got a small ship in the back. It's not fast, but it's invisible to scanners. For short trips. I'll get it ready. You've got 2 hours. She walked off. Mason turned to Carell. We'll be safe soon. But Carell didn't answer. Her body was stiff. Her head turned slowly toward the west. What is it? Mason asked. There's another, she whispered. Another Iliari. Close. Mason blinked. I thought you were the last. Carell shook her head. They told me I was. But I feel her. She's afraid. In pain. Where? Carell closed her eyes. North Sector. Storage yard. Mason hesitated. Carell, this could be a trap. I know, she said softly. But if it's real, I can't leave her. Mason groaned. Why do I always get into this kind of trouble? He turned around. Let's go. They left Jessa's hangar and headed toward the North Sector. The air was colder here, and fewer people walked these streets. Most of the area was locked down. Warehouses, fuel depots, and old cargo crates stacked high like forgotten towers. Carell stopped near one large building. She's inside, she whispered. Mason pulled out a small scanner. The signal was faint but real. Another Iliari life form. Okay, "We get her and get out," he said. They stepped inside the building. It was dark and dusty. Carell's eyes glowed brighter, lighting the way. Near the back, they found a metal cage. Inside was a young Iliari girl, thinner than Carell, with bruises and a metal collar around her neck. She looked up and screamed. Suddenly, lights flashed on. Dozens of soldiers surrounded them. Guns raised. Traps sprung. Mason cursed. "It's a setup." Carell stepped in front of him. Her hands began to glow. A voice came from above. A tall man in black armor walked down the stairs, clapping slowly. "Well done," he said. "You led us right to her. And now, we have two." Mason raised his hands. "She's just a child." "She's a weapon," the man replied coldly. "And now she belongs to us." Carell's breathing grew heavy. The glow from her hands turned into a bright light. "Don't do this," Mason warned. "You don't know what she can do." The man laughed. "We know exactly what she can do. That's why we built this trap. Pain fields, neural suppressors, and—" Carell screamed. A wave of energy exploded from her body. The soldiers were thrown back. Lights shattered. The pain field devices melted like wax. Everything froze. Literally. Time stopped. Mason could still move, but slowly. Around him, the air hung still like frozen smoke. Carell floated a few feet off the ground, glowing like a star. The cage bent outward as her power reached for the other Ilari. The metal collar snapped off. The girl fell into Carell's arms. Time snapped back. The building shook. Carell landed on the floor, weak and pale, but alive. The soldiers groaned, stunned. Mason grabbed her and the rescued girl. They ran. Outside, alarms blared. Sirens howled. But they didn't stop running until they were back at Jessa's hangar. Jessa stared at them. "What in the stars happened to you?" "No time," Mason said. "We need to leave. Now." Jessa nodded and led them to the ship. As they climbed aboard, Carell looked back at the city. "They'll come after us," she whispered. Mason nodded. "Let them. We're not alone anymore." The ship lifted into the night sky, leaving the colony behind. The small smuggler ship flew through the stars, fast and quiet. Mason sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching as the colony disappeared behind them. Carell was asleep in the back, along with the other Iliari girl they had rescued. Her name was Lissa. She hadn't said much, but she stayed close to Carell, like a scared little sister. Jessa, the pilot, kept her eyes on the nav screen. "We're clear for now," she said, "but we kicked a hornet's nest. That general's not going to let this go." Mason nodded. "We'll lay low, find a quiet moon or station to rest." Jessa shook her head. "Not that simple. You don't understand who's after you. That wasn't just any patrol back there. That was Blackreach." Mason frowned. "What's Blackreach?" "Secret military force," Jessa said. "Off the books. They hunt rare tech, alien power, anything the High Command wants to control. And your friend? She's not just a fugitive. She's a gold mine." Mason leaned back in his seat, feeling the weight of it all. He hadn't planned for this. He had only wanted to help a lost girl. Now he was running from the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Behind him, Carell stirred. She sat up slowly, her eyes tired. Lissa held her hand, silent. "Where are we going?" Carell asked. "Somewhere safe," Mason said. "We'll figure out the rest once we get there." Carell looked at the stars outside. "There is no safe place. Not while I have the core light." Lissa whispered something in Iliari, and Carell answered softly in the same tongue. Mason couldn't understand the words, but he saw the fear in their eyes. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared from the ship's dashboard. Jessa cursed. "Incoming signal. Tracking beacon. Someone's following us." Mason leaned forward. "Can you shake them?" "I'll try," she said, flipping switches. "Hold on." The ship turned sharply, diving into a dense asteroid field. Rocks and shadows flew past the windows. The engines roared. Behind them, red lights blinked. 2 hunter ships in pursuit. "They're fast," Jessa said. "Blackreach scouts." Carell stood up, unsteady. "I can help." Mason grabbed her shoulder. "You need rest. You nearly burned yourself out." "I can do it," she said firmly. She moved to the center of the ship and placed her hands on the floor. A soft light spread through the metal. The ship's systems began to glow. The engines grew louder, but smoother, faster. The shields pulsed with energy. "What is she doing?" Jessa asked. "She's bonding with the ship," Mason said in awe. "She's using the core light to boost it." The smuggler ship darted through the asteroid field like a shadow. The hunters struggled to keep up, crashing into rocks or losing signal. Jessa grinned. "We're clear." Carell dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Mason ran to her side. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "Just tired. It takes a lot." Lissa knelt beside her and helped her up. Jessa set the ship on autopilot and opened the supply locker. "There's an old mining station on a dead moon nearby," she said. "Abandoned, but still has life support. We can hide there. Fix the ship. Rest." Mason agreed. "It's better than flying blind." They landed a few hours later. The station was cold and quiet. Rusted walls, dim lights, and long hallways full of dust. But it was safe, for now. They made camp in one of the old control rooms. Jessa started working on the ship's repairs. Mason boiled water for food. Carell and Lissa sat close to the heat, wrapped in old blankets. Mason sat across from them. "Carell," he said, "you never told me where the core light came from." She looked down. "It's from the heart of our world. Eliar. The light lives in the roots of our planet. It connects us, heals us, powers us. But it was never meant to be a weapon." Lissa spoke softly. "They used it anyway, to build machines, to control others." Carell continued. "Our world fell because of it. Some of us ran, others were captured. I was hidden. Lissa too. And now Blackreach wants that power," Mason said. "Yes," Carell whispered. "If they take it, they will use it to rule the galaxy." Jessa stepped in, wiping grease from her hands. "Well, good news. We got a day before they find us again." "How do you know?" Mason asked. She tossed a black chip on the table. "Because one of those hunter ships tagged us before it died. A slow tracker. Clever little thing. I just found it stuck to our fuel line." Mason cursed. "So we're still being followed." "Always," Carell said. "But next time," Lissa added quietly, "we won't run." Mason looked at them both. 2 young girls. Both hunted. Both holding more power than anything he had ever known. He stood up slowly. "Then we need a plan. Because if they were going to survive, they had to stop running and start fighting back." The old mining station was quiet, almost too quiet. Dust floated in the air like ash. Every creak of metal echoed through the empty halls. But inside the control room, things were finally starting to feel steady. Carell and Lissa were resting. Mason was checking the station's systems. Jessa was working on the ship, humming quietly to herself. Mason found an old comms panel that still worked. Most of it was junk, dead signals, and static, but one file stood out. It was locked, old, and marked with a strange code. He called Carell over. "Can you read this?" She sat beside him and placed her hand on the screen. Symbols shifted. Lights flickered. Then the file opened. A hologram appeared. A middle-aged man in a dark uniform stood in the projection. His voice was calm, but serious. "If you're hearing this," the message began, "then the core light has survived. And so have the Eliare." Carell leaned closer. "I know that voice. That's General Thalik. He was one of us, before the war." The message continued. "Blackreach is not just hunting the light. They want to merge it with human tech, to make weapons beyond control. I tried to stop them. I failed. Lissa moved closer too, her eyes wide. They'll come for you, the man warned. If you have the light, you must not run forever. You must find the key. Without it, the core will fall into darkness. The message ended with coordinates, a location deep in the edge of space, far from colonies, far from trade routes. Mason looked at Carell. What's the key? She shook her head. I don't know. But if Phallic believed it could stop Blackreach, we have to find it. Jessa walked in, wiping her hands. Ship's patched. She'll fly, but she won't win a fight. Good, Mason said. We have a place to go now. Before they could move, an alarm rang out across the station. A red light flashed in the hallway. They found us, Jessa said. A ship had entered orbit, bigger this time, heavily armed. Carell stood. They're here for me. No, Mason said. They're here for all of us now. Jessa pointed at a back tunnel. There's a service lift that leads to the ship bay. We can make it if we move fast. They grabbed their bags. Carell and Lissa ran together, holding hands. Mason followed close, blaster drawn. Jessa stayed behind for a moment, setting a trap, old mining charges wired to the walls. As they reached the lift, the station shook. Explosions above. The enemy had landed. They got to the ship just in time. The engines fired up. Carell touched the control panel, sending her light into the systems. The ship rose. Jessa ran in last, panting. That'll slow them down, but not for long. As they flew up into space, Mason looked at the scanners. 2 ships behind us, he said. And they'd got missiles. Hold tight, Jessa said, gripping the controls. The ship twisted and turned. Carell's power helped again, guiding the engines, boosting the shields. But the enemy ships were fast and smart. A missile hit the back of the ship. Sparks flew. Lights blinked. We can't take another hit like that, Mason shouted. Carell stepped forward, breathing hard. Let me try something. She and Lissa placed their hands on the console together. A wave of golden light spread through the cockpit. Outside, the enemy ships suddenly paused. Their engines flickered. Their weapons powered down. What did you do? Mason asked. Carell's voice was soft. We spoke to the ship, their minds. We made them see who we are. The enemy ships pulled away, just for a moment. It was enough. Jessa pushed the engines to full burn. The smuggler ship blasted into the stars, leaving the danger behind. For now. Hours later, they floated in quiet space. Everyone was tired. But they had made it. Carell looked at Mason. I saw something when I reached into their systems. What? They don't want to capture us anymore. They want to destroy us. They've seen what we can do. They're afraid. Then we need to move fast, Mason said, before they get to the key first. Jessa stared out the window. That place, the coordinates from the message. It's in the grave belt. Ships go in, but they don't come out. Carell didn't look away. Then that's where we'll go. Lissa nodded. For the Iliari. For all of us. Mason sighed. Let's hope whatever's out there is less dangerous than what's behind us. The ship turned toward the stars, heading into the unknown. Toward the key, toward answers, and toward a fight that none of them could truly see coming. The grave belt was silent. It wasn't just quiet. It felt empty, like sound itself had been swallowed by the stars. Broken ships floated everywhere. Some were old human warships. Others were alien crafts, twisted and burned. No one spoke much as their small ship drifted between the wrecks. Mason sat at the front, watching the scanner. No life signs, no power, just ghosts. Jessa flew carefully, weaving between debris. This place is cursed. I don't like it. Carell and Lissa sat together, holding hands. The energy around them felt strange. The core light inside them was flickering, reacting to something in the belt. "We're close," Carell said softly. "I can feel it." Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. A cold wind passed through the cabin, even though the air system was sealed. Mason stood up. "What was that?" Jessa checked the controls. "Power's fine, but something's wrong." The scanner picked up a signal. A weak pulse. Just one word repeated over and over. "Help." Mason frowned. "That's a human distress code." Carell nodded. "And something more. It's calling to the light." Against Jess's warning, they followed the signal. A small shipwreck floated near the edge of the belt, half buried in a field of dark matter. The wreck looked old, maybe 20 years, but the beacon was still flashing. They docked carefully. Mason and Carell entered first, weapons ready. Lissa stayed behind with Jessa. Inside the wreck, everything was dark and cold. Wires hung from the ceiling. Bloodstains marked the floor, but there was no sign of life. Until they reached the main chamber. A cryopod stood in the center. Inside was a man, frozen but alive. His uniform was damaged, but the name tag was still clear. "Thalik." Carell gasped. "It's him. General Thalik. He's still alive." Mason stared. "But he sent the message. That was years ago." Carell touched the pod. Her light glowed. The ice began to melt. Minutes later, the man opened his eyes. He coughed, weak and confused. You found me." Carell nodded. "You left the message. You told us to find the key." Thalik sat up slowly. "I failed to stop them. I tried to destroy the data, but Blackreach was always one step ahead. They trapped me here, hoping I'd die with the secret." "What secret?" Mason asked. Thalik looked at Carell. "The key is not a thing. It's a person." Everyone froze. "What do you mean?" Carell asked. "You," Thalik said. "You are the key. You and Lissa, the last children of the First Corps. The power inside you, when joined fully, can either destroy or save the galaxy." Carell backed away, shaken. "No, I'm just one girl. I didn't ask for this." Thalik smiled sadly. "None of us do. But the light chose you." Suddenly, alarms rang out across their ship. Jessa's voice came through the comms. "We've got company. Blackreach just entered the belt. 3 ships. They're closing fast." Mason turned to Thalik. "Can you walk?" The old general nodded. "Not fast, but I'll manage." They ran back to the ship. Lissa's eyes widened when she saw Thalik, but there was no time to explain. The Blackreach ships began firing. Explosions shook the wreck field. Jessa shouted, "They're trying to trap us between the wrecks. We won't last in here." Carell stood tall. "Then we faced them." She and Lissa moved to the center of the ship. They joined hands, their light growing stronger than ever before. The air shimmered. The lights turned golden. Outside, the Blackreach ships paused again. But this time, they resisted the power. "They've changed their systems," Mason said. "They learned." Thalik moved beside Mason. "We have one chance. If the girls focus their light together, they can create a shield strong enough to break through." "But it will drain them," Mason said. Carell looked at him. "We'll be fine. Trust us." Lissa nodded. Jessa pushed the engines. "On your mark." Carell and Lissa closed their eyes. The ship glowed. Energy pulsed around them like a sun. "Now," Thalik shouted. The smuggler ship blasted forward, straight through the wrecks. The light shield held. Enemy fire bounced off it. They broke through the trap and into open space. The Blackreach ships followed, but slower now. "They're not giving up," Jessa said. "They don't have to," Thalik replied. "They're tracking us. Always." Carell sat down, pale but breathing. "We need to end this." Mason looked at her. "Then we find the core. The original one. If you and Lissa came from it, maybe that's where the fight ends." Thalik agreed. It's buried deep, hidden for centuries. But I know where to look. Outside, the stars stretched before them. Behind them, the galaxy hunted them. Ahead of them was the truth. The final journey began in silence. Their ship moved through the edge of known space, heading toward a system that didn't appear on most maps. It was cold, dark, and empty. Until it wasn't. As they crossed into a hidden zone behind a dead star, something shimmered ahead. A massive structure, half buried in a broken moon, came into view. It wasn't just a building. It was a temple. Ancient, Eliari design, covered in markings that glowed faintly when Carell looked at them. "This is it," Felix said. "The first core." No one spoke for a long time. Carell and Lissa stepped forward, drawn by something they didn't fully understand. The others followed, weapons ready. Even from the ship, they could feel the energy pulsing inside the temple. It was old and powerful, and it was waking up. Inside, the temple was filled with floating crystals and glowing lines. Symbols moved across the walls like living language. Carell placed her hand on the center crystal. The room responded. Lights flared. The ground shook. Then a voice spoke, not in words, but in feelings and thoughts. It wasn't threatening. It felt like home. "It knows you," Lissa whispered. Carell's eyes glowed. "It remembers." Suddenly, the energy around them shifted. The dark pulse echoed through the room. Mason looked at the scanner. "They're here. Blackreach. 3 dreadnoughts in orbit." Jessa swore. They brought everything. The temple's doors sealed shut as the enemy ships fired from above. But the structure held. Inside, Carell knelt at the core. "The light says we have a choice." Felix stepped forward. "What kind of choice?" "We can run again, or we can finish it here," she said. "But if we choose to fight, we must become one with the core." Lissa joined her. Together. Mason looked torn. "What does that mean for you?" Carell smiled gently. "We don't know." The temple opened a new chamber, a chamber filled with light. The core pulsed in the center. It looked like a living star, held in place by ancient machines. Carell and Lissa stepped inside. The room closed. Outside, Blackreach forces landed. Soldiers in black armor marched toward the temple, blasting the doors. Jessa and Mason prepared to defend it. Felix stood between them, holding a rifle once again. "We just have to give them time," he said. Inside the chamber, Carell and Lissa floated above the core. Energy wrapped around them, pulling them deeper into its light. Their memories, pain, and hopes flowed into it, and it gave something back. The light didn't just power things. It understood. It chose. Outside, the temple glowed brighter and brighter. Blackreach soldiers breached the first gate. Explosions rocked the walls. Mason fired from cover. Jessa dropped mines down the hall. Felix moved like a soldier again, fearless and calm. "We can't hold forever," Jessa shouted. Then everything stopped. The light exploded from the heart of the temple. A wave of golden energy burst through every room, every wall, washing over the enemy like a storm. The soldiers froze. Their weapons fell. Their ships shut down. Above, the dreadnoughts lost power. Engines stopped. Guns died. In the silence, 2 figures stepped out of the core chamber. Carell and Lissa, but different. They glowed with power, their eyes bright like stars. The light lived in them now, not just inside their bodies, but as part of their very souls. Mason stepped forward, staring. What happened?" Carell's voice was calm and strong. "We became who we were meant to be." Lissa nodded. The light remembered everything. What it was made for. What it can be. Felix lowered his weapon, staring in awe. "You stopped them." "No," Carell said. "We helped them see. The light showed them truth, and it gave them a choice." Outside, the Blackreach soldiers dropped their weapons. Many fell to their knees, confused. The dreadnoughts drifted, powerless. Carell turned to the group. It's over. The war is over. Jessa blinked. Just like that. No war ends in one moment, Carell said. But this is the start. They left the temple together. The stars looked different now, brighter, freer. In the weeks that followed, the truth about the core light spread across the galaxy. The story of two girls, lost and hunted, who changed everything with one choice, who turned a forgotten power into a new beginning. Carell and Lissa chose not to rule, not to fight. They chose to guide. And the galaxy listened. What began with one small act of kindness, in a dark alley on a forgotten world, ended with a light that reached across the stars. Humanity had given hope to a lost girl, and in return, she gave the galaxy a future.